Detective, what are you doing? That's contaminating the evidence. Great. It's
Andrew,
never gonna
Andrew!
hold up. Oh.
We're not detectives. I'm sorry, I didn't want to hit you again.
I just needed
Shut up.
Hi, welcome to TTRPG Talks, where we sit down with game designers to discuss the games we love. Today, I'm with Andrew Orvedahl of Occupied Hex Design, known for the True TV sitcom Those Who Can't, a well-known comedian as well. Andrew, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So I always get started with folks into what brought them into TTRPG interest to begin with. When did you start liking role-playing games?
Well, as a kid growing up in the 80s, I was not allowed to play tabletop role-playing games, even though I desperately wanted to. My parents bought into the the satanic panic or what have you, and I was not allowed to play them. So so as a kid, I would spend all my time in the local game store just reading the game books. I remember reading Dungeons& Dragons and Rifts, and I would just sit there and read through them and kind of wish that I could play them. And it wasn't until much later in my 30s, I had a fellow comedian was like, "You should try Dungeons& Dragons." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess." It kind of just slipped by me. And I played and I was hooked. And then from then on, I've played very kind of steadily since. And so very late in my 30s, but I'm trying to make up for lost time, I guess.
That's fair. So you've been kind of running through all sorts of different games from Dungeons & Dragons for it. Any standouts for you?
I've played so many, it would be hard to. It's funny that Dungeons & Dragons is the first game because I feel like it's one of the most convoluted games, and it's funny that that's the entry point for so many people. And you're like, oh, there's so many other games out there that are much, much easier to learn, much easier to explain to people. And so, gosh, what are some recent standouts that I've enjoyed? I always like the free league games. I've been playing Death in Space by Stockholm Cartel. That's pretty fun.
Nice.
I play a decent amount of Mork Borg, games like that that are just so kind of easy to run. And yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that has jumped out recently. I have this solo journaling game that I just started. It's called Dwelling. It's where you play a ghost in a house. This looks pretty cool. I've been dabbling more with these like solo journaling games, like Thousand Year Vampires, stuff like that, and just kind of seeing how that game technology works is kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, I have in the solo realm, I picked up this Alone Against the Tide, which is like a solo Call of Cthulhu. So it's like
Cool.
You know what it reminds me of is like Choose Your Own Adventures, those old books. So
Yeah, that's what I figure a lot of that must be like.
Yeah.
I'm trying to crack an idea for like a solo journaling RPG that you can also play together in a group. So, when you can't meet up with a gaming group, you could play it solo, but then you could bring your journals together and be able to play together was an idea that I've been trying to crack.
yeah, that's really cool. What brought you from sort of playing to the point where you're like, yeah, I can make these?
I think it was once I learned about home brewing and Dungeons and Dragons, I started home brewing like crazy. I was like, oh, this is fun. It's just fun to design things. And so I homebrewed a ton of stuff and had a fun time with that. I'm also a big tabletop like board game enthusiast and like tabletop war games. And I wanted to get into that realm. I had some game designs. So I created this company, Occupied Hex Games, and with the intention of making board games. And then the pandemic hit and manufacturing overseas was just not happening, and it threw the whole kind of overseas manufacturing in disarray. So I pivoted to making role-playing game books and getting into that. And the first game, I ran the role-playing game club for my daughter's 6th grade class, and I was trying to teach them Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, this is impossible. Right. And it was during COVID, so it was remote. So I was trying to teach a group of people remotely Dungeons and Dragons, a bunch of sixth graders, and I was like, "This is brutal." I was like, "We need a game that they're interested in that we could play that is so easy that I can, I can teach them." So I created my first game, which is called Streets, where the players are like stray animals, like dogs, cats, or rats, and I just kind of made a very very simple game. Um, which with I mean, the initial goal was like, "Can I play this in the sixth graders role-playing game club?" And it worked great, and they had a blast playing it, so then I ended up crowdfunding that and releasing that, and then just kind of releasing games from that point on, um,
Very
just
cool.
one after the other, yeah.
How like I should have asked this a little earlier, but when did you make the transition? It's always fun to hear how people make the transition from player to GM. Like how soon in learning D&D did you end up running D&D?
Mine was super fast. I think I played literally, like, 1 or 2 games, and then I wanted to play all the time. But the person who ran the game first was like, "Oh, I can't run games that frequently. Like, I can only play, like, once a month," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, no. I can't wait. I can't just play once a month." And so I transitioned really quickly to DMing, and that because that way I could set up games and play much more frequently. So I think it was like 2 games in, I kind of hopped over and I was just kind of learned as quickly as I could.
It's a trend I'm noticing as I interview game designers that seems to be the case. Like they're from playing to running is very short, and then like they kind of become forever DMs, and then that tends
Yeah.
to lead to them wanting to
I like
sign up.
both
Yeah.
for sure, but I feel like DMs, I mean, as we all know, running the game takes more work. Even with the game is super easy, it still takes more work. You kind of have to be familiar with the rules. You need to kind of organize it and get it all together. And I think that it's an important role in just the social environment of role playing games is having people that are willing to, put in that little bit of extra effort to run the game. So I don't mind doing it. I like doing it, but it is also very fun to play, to be like, oh my gosh, I don't have to prep anything tonight. I just show up and I just get to play. And that's also kind of a nice break for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I zeroed in on things even more so during the pandemic when there was nothing else to do. And like, I'm an extrovert, so not being able to go out anywhere sucked.
Yeah.
It really did. And like, I need people in any for and this is great, sort of reconnecting with the hobby full scale during that time. So,
Totally.
you
I
went.
think it, like, saved me in the pandemic. Having that social outlet of playing games remotely definitely kept me pretty sane. That was, like, my main social life for sure during the lockdown and everything.
Yeah, pretty much same. You so you made Streets. Where did you go to from there? Like,
So after Streets, I had a game that I've been working on forever called Duster. It was originally like many, many years ago, I had an idea for a comic book, and then it was an idea for a novel that I wanted to write. And it was just like kind of one of those ideas that I've always just been like tumbling around up there. And then I was like, oh, this would make a cool role playing game. And so the kind of world had been tumbling around forever, and then I made a kind of a unique game engine for it as well, and that was a big undertaking. Streets is like a little zine game, and it was designed to be very light, and Duster is like a 272 page game. It's definitely much like meatier as a game. It's not necessarily like super complex, but definitely has more to it than that. So then I released that and I crowdfunded that and it was a success and I learned a ton about releasing games and publishing and design. It's just me at Occupied Hex Games, so I have to like learn I have to basically learn how to do everything or find somebody who I can collaborate with to do it. But so I learned a ton with that. And then after Duster, I'm not I don't hold me to the chronological order of these, but I'm pretty sure this is the order. I made a Shark Attack game called Chum, which is back to zine size, very easy to learn and play. That's just basically any shark movie you've ever watched. I kind of gamified it to that, and that's a fun game just for people who maybe have no experience with RPGs because it's there's not even a stat in the game. You just roll, and it's a great entry point for sure. And then I made a game called Valley Heat, which is kind of a comedy game with my buddy Christian Duguay, who has a very funny narrative comedy podcast uh, called Valley Heat. And so we made that together. And then I made two more sequels to Street. So it's like a trilogy of games. There's Trash City, which is all about night critters, and Bird Cult, which is all about birds. And so I released those. And then I made some small like freebie games. One is called Steel and Spirit. I don't know if you're familiar with John Harper's Lasers plus Feelings game.
Yeah.
It's like a single stat game, and I discovered that. I played a I can't remember the title of it. Forgive me, whoever designed it. But it was like it's like a cyberpunk game based around the music of Carly Rae Jepsen, the pop singer. And I somehow randomly found that and I played it with some friends. I was like, oh, this is really fun. And it was so easy to play and easy to learn. So I mashed Dungeons and Dragons into that system because I was like, it'd be cool as a starting kind of, maybe you could call it training wheels or something, an entry point into Dungeons and Dragons using the Lasers plus Feelings game engine, which is way, 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 way easier. And so that's called Steel and Spirit. That was just like a free game I made. But people have told me that it worked great for like bringing, especially either kids or people who just they feel standoffish toward role playing games. It's a good first step. And I made another little free game called The Lost Age, which is actually a companion kind of prequel game to Duster. It's like a way to kind of generate lore for a Duster game, but it also serves as its own little standalone kind of grim survival game. And then more recently, I crowdfunded my first ever Morkborg hack, which is called Endless Grind Set. It's kind of set in this Shadow Realm Tower, which is like a kind of a splinter of office towers in our world. So it's got like kind of dark office comedy, and it's just kind of horror, dark fantasy. That should be out in October. And then right after that, I launched Procedural, which is a game I made with Rob Kirkovich that's all about solving like TV crime shows. But I realized I had tons of games that I finished up to like 95%, and I don't know if it's like a function of ADHD or something, but I would like hop from the game instead of finishing it to a new game and then work on that one up there, and then I'd hop to another game. And so I was like kind of looking through my carousel of games that I've worked on, and I was like, so many of these games are so close to being completely finished, and I just hopped to the next one. So I've been trying to go back and just like bang these games out and release them. So yeah, I call it my summer of games. So the rest of this year should be pretty busy with releasing games.
Yeah, you have a pretty prolific release like schedule considering you started this, you said around the pandemic time? When did you
I
start? When
created
was your
a company in 2018, and I released Streets. Gosh, when I want to say 20. Gosh, do you mind if I check real quick?
Not at all.
2 seconds. It will. I'll tell you because um it's on Kickstarter here. So I released Streets um way back in um I think it was 2021. So that's when I first like released a game, and then yeah, since then been fairly steady. I moved a few times and I had just a lot going on in uh, my regular life for kind of 2024. So 2024 was a slow year, but other than that, it's been pretty steady.
Yeah, it seems like you've been pumping these out, and just looking at the number versus, 2021 was less than 5 years ago. So that's a lot in that time. I noticed one of the things I observed with a lot of your games is they seem to be very focused on, um, how would I put this? Like bringing, I want to say normal people, but like, can we say normies? That's a well understood line? But like normies into the space, like where you might sit down with friends, and the first thought they'll have about these games is, well, this, you give them a sheet and they're like, oh my God, this is complicated. What am I did? Am I playing Sudoku? Like, what am I doing
Yeah.
here? Like, you know,
Yeah, I there's a comedian, again, forgive me, comedian, whoever you are, who coined this joke, but he was talking about Dungeons& and Dragons, and he said that playing Dungeons& and Dragons is like filing a tax return for an orc,
right.
is which it kind of is what it feels like when you're teaching someone how to just make their character. You can kind of see them starting to get apprehensive, and once you're playing Dungeons& and Dragons, it becomes significantly easier. Once you're like, "Oh, okay, so I'm basically just rolling 1 dice, and these other dice I'm not using nearly as much," and, I think the learning curve is very steep in character creation, and then I think it's a bit more manageable, but, um yeah, I definitely wanted games that tried to lower that barrier, just to be not only more appealing to people, but also just to improve the speed of play. I think we've all been playing a role-playing game where we have to check the rules, like, every 3 minutes, where it's like, "Oh, hang on, let me look up that spell distance. Hang on, let me look up this, let me look up that," and it just you can't really get into the momentum
Right.
of the story, and
What's the
so
phase of the moon that matters for this?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, with a lot of my games, yeah, there is a goal to just like, man, let's just try to keep this story cooking and minimal rules reference and just be playing. And a lot of games I'm making now, I try to do kind of role to create characters where it's just like, you don't even need to prep your character in advance. You just sit down, let's bang out some rolls, and you'll have your character in just like a few minutes, and then we can start playing. I think technologies like that can be useful in bringing new people in, because I do think that people are, especially adults, they're even more hesitant because 'cause they're like, "What am I doing? What I'm playing make believe," you're already kind of
Right.
selling them on this activity that they might be hesitant to kind of give themselves over to. So, I think anything that a game can do to make it even easier, like going back to the example of my Shark Attack game, Chum, when I can tell people, I'm like, "You like Shark Attack movies, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, I love Shark Attack movies." I'm like, "This is just that in a game. Like, you're in a raft with, like, these 3 other people, and there's a shark around." And I think if it can be sold that easy to them, they're like, "Oh, okay, maybe, yeah, yeah, I'll try it." And as long as, they can sit down and they're like, "Oh, this actually is pretty easy. I'm not being overwhelmed with rules. I don't need to bring something where it's like, yeah, why don't you bring a character? It'll take you 45 minutes to create one and you'll do it wrong. And when you show up, we'll have to redo it." Like that kind of a thing, I think, can stumble people, which is no shade on complex games. I love complex, crunchy games too. Um, I have games I'm working on that are very, very in depth. So no shade on a complex game, but I do I do like if I can make my game easier for the layman, the normie to grasp, then I try to take that route.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed that with procedural too, and then going through your catalog, you scope games really well. Like you have a thought in mind that translates. So when you think of like, I've kind of come to this reality recently with D&D 5e, which I don't hate, but it's like, what are you telling a normie that is? Like, it's like, well, we're playing a medieval or like a fantasy Avengers. Like, how do you,
Yeah.
what's my grandma gonna understand or my mom gonna understand about this? Like, it's hard to it's hard to draw a direct link to something. So procedural, for example, we can get into that in a little bit, but police, crime, procedural shows, almost everyone, even people who aren't fans of that, get that loop, like what that's about and
Like,
how it's
okay,
kind of
yeah.
right.
Yeah. I have done some TV writing and a lot of TV pitching, and a big part of that is being able to convey the idea of what something is about as efficiently as possible. Like how can I convey how can I encapsulate this as efficiently as possible so that you'll get it immediately and I don't have to keep, because yeah, D&D is a great example. That lore is so broad and so all over the place. It's like, oh well, we'll be playing fantasy. Uh, it's Spelljammer, so it's like, oh, we'll be on a ship that looks like a manta ray flying around space. But we can also visit castles like that seem like they're from medieval time. We can also shift planes into like a Feywild world. It's a lot that if you were to try to describe it to someone, I could see them feeling kind of crushed by it.
Yeah, very smorgasbordy. You know what did a really good job of that was the IT Crowd, the BBC one. There's an episode where they're teaching the rugby guys D&D and that, and it's like, and you're an elf unicorn or something. It's something wild, and the guy, just the look on the guy's face is great. But yeah, let's dive in because I want to make sure we give lots of time for it since an active Kickstarter right now. Uh, why don't we talk about procedural and what led to that and how that all came about?
This is a game I co-created with Rob Kirkovich from, people might know him from Glass Cannon Network or NCIS New Orleans. Rob lives in Denver where I live, and someone had, just through the grapevine, the comedy grapevine, everyone was like, you know who you should meet? This guy, Rob, who just moved to town, because he's a big nerd like you. And like multiple people told me that. And then we met up and I was like, oh, yay. Yeah, there is another nerd, but also comedy person in town. So we kind of had an instant friendship link there. And in hanging out, Rob Rob knew that I made games. I had given him a few copies of my games, and he was like, "You know what? Somebody should make a role-playing game that's like a TV crime procedural." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's a great idea for a game." And so we just started talking about it immediately and tinkering with it, and we kind of adapted my Streets game engine into that because it's both, I think, one of my simplest game engines, but it's also very solid, very well tested across a number of games, and uh, it's kind of proven itself, and it works great for this kind of game where it's rules light, more about fun and the story. So yeah, we spent 2 years working on it, and this is the most I've ever worked on a game in terms of taking it back into the garage and overhauling significant parts of it. Usually with a game, I don't, especially now that I have a number of game engines already built, it gets easier and easier because I'm like, oh, I already know what is strong and reliable with this game engine, and I know what can be like tweaked or maybe tuned up. But with this game, it was tricky because we also wanted to make it happen in a 3-act structure. Because I don't know if you or the viewers have ever tried to run a mystery in a role-playing game, it can take forever
Right.
because the players they want to exhaust every possible thing. So they want to really milk everything they can. And so it can be a little tricky. And then on the flip side, in a role-playing game, maybe they solve the mystery immediately, either through luck or they're just that clever. And they're like, no, I know who did it. It was this person. So we had to overcome those two hurdles. So to overcome those hurdles, the first thing we did was we created a 3-act structure, and each act has 4 scenes in it. And so the players take turns setting up their scene, where they want to go, what they want to do, and they basically have one quote unquote thing they want to do in that scene. That doesn't mean that we'll only make one role in the scene. That just means they have a specific aim in the scene. Like, I want to go to the widow's house and question her. That's perfect. We have the location of where you want to go, and we have the thing you want to do, which is questioning the widow. So we know. And then you could bring another player with you, and then you go and you like have your scene. So that that took a bit of tinkering, and we made that work. But then we also had to overcome the hurdle of a clever player just immediately guessing, like, I think it was this person. You've been playing 10 minutes and they're like, I think it was this person. So you not only have to figure out the right person who did it, you also have to gather quality evidence to make a case that will convict them. Because if you just find the right person, but you have bad evidence or no evidence, there's a good chance that they'll walk. There's like an epilogue scene in the game where the person running the game will let you know kind of the outcome of the trial. You don't play the trial, it just kind of happens there at the very end. And so they'll be like, yeah, they got away because all your evidence was bad. You only collected bad evidence. So you did find the right person, but all you had was bad evidence, so they got away. So that keeps them. They might think that they have the right person, but they still need to put in the effort to gather the evidence to uh um sh- uh shut the case. I don't know why I couldn't think of the right term. Close the case. So
That's a
that was the bulk of the design stuff that we kept refining over and over again.
that's quite genius. With how useful was it to have Rob, who's been on NCIS and been through like
Oh,
the
yeah.
procedural loop? Was he able to just
It
like
was
you
it
could
was
vet your
perfect.
mechanics against him almost like
Yeah, I'd be like, "Is this how it is?" Because I'll be honest, I don't even watch modern
right?
crime procedurals. I guess I watched, like Hannibal, I've watched I've watched some of, like, the more weird esoteric ones, but I've never been that huge into any of the modern ones. Growing up, I loved, the '80s ones, but I hadn't watched them in a while. So, yeah, it was super handy to have Rob there, and I'd be like, "Is this how it is in these shows?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, absolutely," or "No." So, it was very very handy to have him there just to kind of lend a bit of that authenticity across the board. Also, when we're coming up with the character classes to be like, is this a character who we would see on one of these shows? And he'd be like, "Yep, that was season 4, episode 11." He definitely like knew right who uh where every character would kind of slot in there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I noticed one of the things that stood out watching the actual play you guys did on Glass Cannon or doing, can't remember if you're all the way through yet. Um, the plot B mechanic I thought was pretty genius. The what is this person's side story? Like what do they got going on at home? And the fact you can roll that up or down with
Yeah.
the character too.
Yeah, we realized that all these shows, they've got these B stories, which is the side drama going on. And we are like, we should definitely incorporate that in. It shouldn't just be the case. So again, that was something that took a lot of tweaking where it was like, how much is too much? So we had to dial in that sweet spot where you want that in the game, but you can't have too much. We were like, we can't have every character working through their B story in a single case because it is too much. So luckily, the way that the kind of initiative rolling works in each act, you figure out who will be working on their B story. But yeah, those scenes always they also even though the game is not a comedy game, it wasn't designed to be a comedy game. It's just designed to be like a TV crime procedural in role playing game form. But just I guess by virtue of how people play the game, it's usually very funny. And those B stories are especially funny because we've got these detectives, like in the playthrough in your example, Mary Lou, she has this like little showbiz pizza type pizza operation that's very crappy. It's like her struggling business. And so I mean, the scene is hilarious. It was very funny, and it also helps to kind of balance the tone of the game. The tone we've never found the tone of the game to be too grim. It's not supposed to be a detective simulator. It's not supposed to be, an actual kind of
True detective.
crime vibe. It's supposed to be a like a TV crime show. And when you watch those, the tone is like lighter, even though they're dealing with these murders or even gruesome murders. You can handle it. It's not like, oh, what a horrific show. And so those B story interludes really help to kind of they're like a palate cleanser, and they help to keep the tone a little lighter. And it's just also fun to give players kind of a scene where they can just go nuts with their character that doesn't have anything to do with the case. Because this is a game, I think more than most, that you don't want Agent of Chaos players. Like, you can be an Agent of Chaos player in terms of like your character's personality, but if the actions are chaotic, if you are working against your squad, it is a game that will punish you more than the average game, I think, because you have this finite amount of scenes to solve the case. You've only got 3 acts. There's 4 scenes in each act. If someone spins their scene working against investigating the case, being kind of goofing off to that point, it would negatively impact your chances of solving the case. So the B stories also work as kind of an outlet for that. It's like you wanna go crazy, you wanna have more fun with the character. There is a opportunity for that within the game structure for sure.
I could see that too from a player agency perspective because there are a couple things that are unique about this medium of I don't want to even call it art, but you know what I mean, gaming in general.
Yeah.
It's that the other players are your audience, right? Unless you're doing an actual play, the other players who are the audience of that. So usually those scenes I find in most shows are a way of showing, like getting the players more invested in that character. Oh, who is this person aside from their job? Oh, that's a fun bit. That can be useful for the group. On that topic, I was actually going to ask, so the 3 acts are towards a single case, right? Uh,
Yeah, so each case, you can either just play a single case, like a one shot, or there's like a season mode as well, where you play through a season of cases and your actions affect future cases and things like that. But yeah, so it's 3 acts in within each case. And then there's like an epilogue at the end.
very cool. Yeah, I was gonna ask about season play, that makes a lot of sense. So you could do
Yeah,
these could be episodic, but still have tie-ins to other ones if, need be.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So each case, ideally, you're playing each case in a single game session. You can, if it's like, well, this session is taking a long time, we got to call it. There's no reason why you can't call a session, but ideally, you're playing each case in a single game session, and then yeah, in season mode, they chain together, and the outcomes kind of affect your standing within this organization. You can create these like arch enemies. Like if you arrest the wrong person in a case and they go free, they can show up later in the season as like an arch enemy who's kind of like making it even harder for you to solve a case because you wronged this person, you arrested an innocent person. So we kind of wanted that to make it feel when you watch these shows that happens, it's like, oh, this character's back, that kind of thing. So we wanted that. And it also just helps to create a more cohesive world for the players. Because yes, it's based on like TV crime shows, but they are like in the game world. So anything that kind of helps gel that together so that it feels like more like a living world is great. And having actions from one case carry on over to the future cases helps that. And also those characters popping back up. It's like, oh no, that guy's back. That kind of a vibe.
It's odd. I was thinking about this. You mentioned that you're not like necessarily the hugest fan of procedural crime shows. One of my favorite games in the early 20 teens was a game called Smallville. I hated the Smallville TV show, but the WB, like, it kind of did a bit of like what you aim to do, like with sort of really bringing to life the tropes and the concepts of that. And it seems like these games are really well suited for not only like the fans of the genre, but also the critics of the genre, because there's something neat in unpacking it for some reason. Like it's just a lot of fun to play it, even if you're not gonna sit down and watch, NCIS or Law and Order, even.
Totally. That's how I found it to be because I don't watch them, but I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is fun." And when we play tested it, we wanted, the most well-rounded sampling of play testers, so we definitely had people play it that were like, I've never watched a crime procedural, nor am I interested in them. And then they sat and they played and they're like, that was fun. I liked it. And they were like, maybe I should watch crime TV shows. Like they were like, maybe there's something to it. But yeah, I do think that being able to, and which is what I love about role playing games and why they're probably my favorite. I think we can call them an art form or at least a medium, is that you get to just step inside that world and kind of inhabit this character in a way that no other game, like you could make a board game that's like solve the case as a board game. It just feels so different. Even if the game mechanics are about as immersive as they can be, you're still like, we played a board game, we investigated, we caught the guy. Whereas when you're actually inhabiting the characters and you're kind of telling the story together, I think it brings it to life in a way that, yeah, it doesn't matter if you don't care about crime shows. That's just like gravy on top. If you love crime shows, I think you'll like the game that much better. But I think the game um is would be a hit with anyone. The only people I don't think would like this game are people with an aversion to with a serious aversion to murder. If you are a murderer or you've if you lost someone to a homicide, then maybe you don't want to make light of it with a role playing game. But I think
The murder is
yeah,
just there, like, hey, that's not how it
yeah,
works at
that's
all.
not how it is. In designing these cases, I have to also say as an aside, I cannot imagine the watch list that I am on from coming up with these murder case where I've been Googling so many insane things like, can forensics tell if a person has been poisoned with blah blah blah? Can forensics tell if I'm just asking all of these crime questions that definitely would make it seem like I'm gearing up for a murder or a lot of murders, but uh,
Yeah, a multitude of murders.
yeah.
That's really interesting. I think Rob made reference to this in the uh I think Rob made reference to this in the actual play. How hard would it be for it didn't seem like it was that hard anyways. Would it be if someone's like, "Oh, I want to do this, but I want to do The Wire or I want to do True Detective." Do you think like the framework's still there for someone that wants to a little bit
Oh
more of
yeah.
like the super dramatic, let's say, rather than the
I
realistic
think
angle?
I think the way that the case infrastructure is built, I think you can absolutely tune it to your liking. We have a couple expansions in mind. One is like a totally red 80s expansion. It's got like talking vehicles. It's got
Right.
it's right out of all of the 80s shows. We also have like a cozy core mysteries expansion where you're sipping tea and you're solving these like very homespun mysteries. We've also been talking about maybe like a 50s kind of noir expansion. I think that the infrastructure can be tuned exactly how you like it. And some people were like, you should do a more supernatural one like X-Files or something. And I think it would
Hmm.
be so easy to dial it into that if somebody wanted to.
Very cool. Is there anything else you wanted to highlight? So Procedural is on Kickstarter till the 14th. Is that correct? August 14th?
It is, yeah, it will end on Thursday, August 14th, if that's that date, I think.
Sounds right.
And yeah. So if people want to check it out, they can. There is a sampling of that actual play on there if they want to give that a look. If they want to see any of my other games, they go to occupiedhex.com. I have a newsletter on there. I never sign people up on the newsletter without them clicking that they want to. It's very infrequent, and I give away dice when I do post it as kind of an incentive. But that's a great way to be up on the news for all my upcoming games because there are a whole bunch coming down the pipeline now. So if you're interested, sign up for that newsletter on the website.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to give you a minute. Are there any shout outs, and aside from everything we've talked about, that you'd like to name out here?
Sorry, could you say that one more time? There was a little
Yeah,
hiccup.
sorry about that. Are there any shout outs to anything that you want to call out here? that we haven't already talked about?
Oh, well, I'll definitely shout out Rob, my co-creator for Procedural. Thanks for uh being my co-pilot as we made this. It's been quite the 2 years, but it's great that now the game is almost in everybody's hands. It should ship in December. So definitely shout out Rob, and I'll shout out the team at Glass Cannon for playing that playthrough with us. That was very cool of them. So yeah, I'll shout both those guys out.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Yeah. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.